Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I am so blessed and honored to be here today with one of my favorite people in the world, Tina Peterson, my real estate agent from Real Estate One. What's up, Tina? How you doing?
Excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
This lady right here got me the single biggest check I've ever received in my entire life. So you will always hold a very special place in my heart, Tina. Okay?
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, for real. No, but seriously, like I was so blown away with the process. And like, after I got done, I was talking to my wife. I was like, I should have Tina on the show because I learned more about real estate. Like I'm a certified relocation professional. I passed my, the real estate component of that. And like, I've, studied a lot of stuff and I've talked to a lot of realtors and a lot of brokers and a lot of RMCs and everything. But I learned so much about the real estate process going through it, selling my first house that I'd ever owned. I bought 3 years ago, and you walked me through that process, and I was super nervous. And I'm going to talk about all that stuff. I was so nervous.
I gave you a name. You were Nervous Nelly.
I was, hopefully that doesn't stick. But yeah, I mean, I was nervous, and I'm going to talk about all that. If you're watching right now, go ahead, check in, hit that like button, throw some comments in there, throw Tina some love. Let us know who you are, where you are, what you're doing right now. I would love to hear your real estate questions. We've been talking about real estate questions on the program for months now because it's such a weird market right now. And I'm going to ask Tina about that. We got Stacy coming in right now. What's up, super producer Stacy in the house? Doug Barnett getting involved early. Hello, Ben and Tina. Let us know who you are, where you are. Hit that like button as well so we get the party started. I'm actually going to go in here and like this right now myself. So Tina, where in the world are you for everybody that doesn't know?
I am in Michigan, where you used to be. So I'm in Howell specifically right now. Yeah.
Yep.
Starting to warm up here. We had a little bit of
where's Howell for people that don't know where Howell is?
So Howell's in Livingston County, near Brighton.
Okay. We're going to call that Metro Detroit for the purposes of everybody that's watching right now. We got people in Germany coming to us right now, so we're going to have to give them a big dot on the map to look at. Alan King, hi, Ben and Tina, checking in from Germany, Monday, my favorite day of the week. Oh, and shout out to Alan, who was our wine winner last week for our 8 weeks of giving wine winner. Let's go ahead and put that up, Stacy, real quick. If you want to win some wine, every week on Friday on the show here at Love and Relo, we're giving away not one, but 2 bottles of wine, courtesy of our good friends at First Tech Federal Credit Union. Shout out to Brian and Ed and Ingrid. Go register right now. Where's the link over here? Go register. Wait, goes this way. Register right there. There's the link. loveandrelo.com/community. Put your name in there. Now, Alan, I see you already. You can only win once, Alan. So just know that. But Alan won finally. Robin checking in, looking good.
Hi, Rob. That's my manager.
That's for Tina. Okay.
That's my manager. Hi, Robin.
Get dressed up for this. Okay. Hey, Robin. How do you and Robin work together?
She's my counselor on my end. See, I was your counselor. She's my counselor.
Nice. We always just want to keep us out of trouble.
Yeah, she supports us. She showed up today with some awards. The team won some awards this year. So she showed up with some awards and she gives us all of her support and love. And she's a lending ear when we need to listen.
So Robin's got the first question of the day. What do you do when someone starts crying, Tina? You get a lot of criers in your business?
Well, I have this, I don't want to call it a habit, but whatever it is, if somebody else starts crying, I start crying. It's just an immediate reaction. So my husband laughs at me. I can have the TV on and be watching a commercial and no volume, nothing. But if I see a tear, it's end of the game right there. So, yeah.
I might have to start crying today just to see.
Yeah, she thinks, it works. It works. Don't do it. I know. She thinks that's funny. She says it's endearing. I personally think it's a curse.
Well, that just means you're so empathetic that if someone's crying, you feel their pain. I think that's probably what made. I mean, that was honestly one of the things that. So Olivia's like, "Who's on the show?" And I'm like, "Tina's on the show." She's like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah, you should come on in." She's like, "I gotta go pick Danny up from school." But that was one of the things, Tina, that really stuck with me. And we got people checking in. Keep checking in. Let me know your real estate questions. Daniel, I see you. Marilee, let me know what you got. Robin, Jack, everybody checking in. But you were referred to. So I'm going to tell the story real quick. And I know I told Tina to come on. I said, Tina, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. But really, I also want to talk about my situation, my story. I wanted to sell my house. I wanted to move to Dallas, which we eventually did. Spoiler alert. But I was so scared to like even have somebody come in my house because honestly, like I didn't feel like it was really ready to sell. And like, it's like when you have your in-laws come over or whatever, you want to get it all tidied up and you're like, well, the tile here needs to be replaced and the paint over here needs to be replaced and the bathroom looks like crap and like all this stuff. And I finally like said, okay, I'm going to get some people to come in. And you were referred to us by one of our friends, and you came in and you just like had such a nice way about you when you came into our home because we were so sensitive about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, we just felt at ease by that
People
process.
take a lot of pride in their homes, so that I'm a homeowner. I don't want somebody coming in and ripping me up about what I do or what I don't do or how I care for things. So that's a very personal thing. So it is a lot, a little bit of counseling.
And then I was like really nervous, like, okay, are we going to make our money back on this house? Are we going to have to pay to sell it? Are we going to, because I was like, there's a lot of things that need to get done. And you came in and you kind of assessed the value of it. And I got to ask, Tina, I'll be honest, I think I told you this. I had three realtors come in. And I'm going to tell, so I had somebody that advertised on the shopping carts at Kroger. Like he's supposed to be the guy in the neighborhood, right? So I had him come in, right? And he put me at 450. I had Redfin come in, right? Because they're supposed to be the cheap way to sell a house, right? Super low commissions, whatever. She had me at like 423 or something like that. And you came in, and do you remember like what you told us we should sell the house at?
I do. I put it at 500. And so
And
now one of the things though,
yeah.
I gave you the reason why. It wasn't just I was pulling that number out of a hat. It was we did the comps and we did the homework. So the comps supported that value. And I remember I had to tell you, trust me.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know, Tina. I don't know. You're like $50K over the guy that was on the Kroger carts. I don't know why that for some reason had some credibility in my mind, right? I'm like, you seem kind of high right there. And no, you were. You're like, trust me. And you know what, Tina? I'll be honest with you. Like I tell my clients, trust me all the time. And like a lot of them don't for whatever reason, because what I'm telling them might be like too good to be true or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? Every time I tell my client, trust me, and they don't trust me. And like, I just wish that they would have, because I could help them. And I was like, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to trust her. Chris Howder said she was great. I'm going to trust her. And we went with it. And do you want to just tell people kind of what the process was, like how it went?
Yep. So I gave you a little bit of consult. We walked through the house and did a little bit of things to fix it up, not too much, but things that made sense that you were gonna get addressed anyway by a buyer. So you did those things, and
you gave me a handyman. You gave me a handyman who was great, and a painter who was phenomenal.
Yep.
And they were super, like, I mean, they were cheap. I mean, and they did great work, and they came in and like banged out this, and then I was like, oh, we'll paint this. And they did all those things, which was like a relief for me because I'm not handy, So
that's one of the things I tell people is to trust your real estate agent. If you have a good real estate agent, this is what we do every day. We know lenders, we know title companies, we know fixer uppers and handymen and painters and whatever you need to get it done.
Yeah. And then you, and Dan, I'm going to get to your question. I think this is going to be to your question, Dano. And then we put it on the market on a Wednesday. And why is Wednesday the day that we put it on?
Because when it goes on the market, it takes sometimes 2 to 3 days to get into the website. So Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia, all those. So that's funny because that's usually where people don't use a real estate agent at first. They start looking online. And with the way the market is right now, those homes are sold by the time they hit that market. They're already pending. So we like to list on a Wednesday, Thursday, so that by the weekend, if that house isn't already gone, then it's on those websites. And then I told you to go stay away for the weekend.
Yeah. And so we went and we packed up and we got a hotel.
Yep.
We got a hotel.
30 showings in 24 hours.
It was bananas. It was incredible. We had so many showings come through, and which, I mean, we couldn't have even been in the house because every 30 minutes we would have been having to leave the house.
Yep.
And I want to say we had like 5 offers, maybe more, come in
Yep.
by the next morning, which is so funny, Tina. So funny, so funny. Because that next morning, I don't know if I told you this, that next morning I walked into my job and I quit my job. That
I
next morning,
think you did.
you
You told
called
me
me with
something
all these
about,
offers.
yeah, I think I called you and I said, here's what we got. And you're like, I'm just getting ready to walk into my office. And I'm like, real nerve. Can I call you back? I go, sure. So
Well,
yeah, you
you
did tell
sent
me.
me, you're like, hey, I need you to sign this DocuSign on this offer and accept this
Yeah.
offer, which came in 10K over ask.
Yep.
And I was like, all right, I'm gonna like sign it. And then I like walked in and then yeah,
Yeah.
and that
It's
was crazy.
it's a crazy market right now. And I appreciate that you trusted me.
Oh my gosh, it was awesome. So Dano McCoy says, "Hey Tina, is this a buyer or seller's market now?" Dano, Viva Las Vegas. So Dano is in Vegas right now visiting mom, but he's also lives in Atlanta to give it some
Okay.
context because I know some of these things are
Okay.
geographical.
Hi,
So
Dano.
is it a buyer or seller's market?
Definitely a seller's market right now. Yep. Yeah, so we have a lot of buyers and very few listings. So as soon as they come on the market, I sold another one in your neighborhood in between the time when you left that we sold before it even went on the market.
How do you sell a house before it goes on the market?
Social media. So you just put it out, say, hey, I got this coming up. And then a lot of the top agents will email each other too and say, hey, we've got this coming. Have you got a buyer for it? So it's social media though.
See, that's so interesting, and I remember that because you would send me like a I don't know if it was an Instagram
Video.
post or a Facebook post, like a little clip or whatever.
Mhm.
And I think because it was right around Christmas or something, it was like had Santa Claus like walking up to the steps, in the house, and it's like the best present you could get somebody or whatever. And I was like, that's pretty sweet. And but I was surprised about it because not only did we get a bunch of requests for showing on the day of, but you had actually networked and gotten several showings, kind of lined up before we even put it on the market, which I thought was super interesting because I didn't really realize that you could do that. I kind of just thought you put on the MLS and you kind of get what you get. But
Yeah. So you can put it out there. I want to say 24 hours prior to it going on the MLS. You can put it as a coming soon or, hey, I've got this coming up. Let me know if you want to see it before it goes live.
Yeah.
So there's rules.
And I want to hear your questions. I'm going to talk to Tina a little bit about strategies for selling the house and getting top dollar for it. Because I feel like she did a tremendous job with that. I literally, Tina, I feel like you probably made me another 50 grand on my house just because of the way you priced it, some of the things that we did. And I want to talk about that a little bit. And I want to hear about your story, but I also want to hear everybody that's watching right now. I want to hear your questions about the process. If you're thinking of selling your house, if you just sold a house, if you're thinking about buying a house, let us know. If you're an RMC or a relocation manager out there who works with home sales or whatever, let me know. Jack, hello, Ben and Tina. Jack, I'd love your questions. I know you deal with real estate transactions. Marilee Brett, hello, Ben and Tina from sunny but 25-degree Minnesota. What's up, Marilee? Is that colder than Detroit?
It was in the 40s over the weekend. So, and it did get cold enough to snow, but then it went away. So I'd say it's probably 35 today.
Yeah. This is great. Marilee, love to hear your questions as well here. Let's see here. Alan's shouting out First Tech Federal Credit Union, his favorite bank. That's great. That's great. Speaking of banking real quick, what does your lender have to do with the process? I mean, tell me a little bit about the importance of that, or is it important at all?
Well, it's definitely important. So we've had some lenders, and Alan can probably attest to this. We've had some lenders that the buyer will come pre-approved from a lender that's out of state. Michigan has certain laws that they have to abide by. So a lot of the times those don't make it to the closing table. So we watch very closely. Sellers sometimes won't accept an offer that's from an out-of-state lender either for that reason. So we watch very closely and we make sure that we recommend people that we know. So when I recommend a lender, I recommend the lender that I use, that I recommended to my children. Same thing with inspector, same thing with, the fix-it guy. When I recommended the painter to you, he painted my home. So It's always, the goal is I want to recommend people to you and I want you to come back and say, thank you. That was fantastic. Not like, what the heck did you recommend them for? So they are very important. Obviously, the lending is second most important to us, right?
Yeah. Well, and I got to shout out Premia, because this was actually, the buyer was actually a relocation, a transferee from North Carolina, I want to say, and his lender was actually Premia Relocation Mortgage, and I tell you what, from a seller standpoint, working with them is tremendous. I can't speak for the buyer, but I mean, it was so quick. They did a desktop appraisal, which I was like, going through inspection, and I'm going to talk about my inspection woes, because I want to be fully transparent and help everybody out. I think that was probably one of the areas where I probably would have done things maybe a little differently. But because once we finally got through inspection, the appraisal, I was worried. I was like, man, we're pricing this thing high. I didn't think the house should have went for more than 440, 450, and we had it at 500. And so I was kind of worried about the appraisal process. What are you seeing right now from an appraisal standpoint?
So you got to remember that we're at the high end of what we can list things at, or the prices that we're getting. We're getting a lot of offers that are have appraisal gaps, have appraisal waivers. So those are fantastic. We obviously love those. But it takes 3 to 5 comps to get the support for a house, to get the value for a house. So we do have to be careful with that. But we have a lot of stuff that we do on our end. We make sure that we've done a list of all the improvements in the house, the things that give it more value over the comparable homes. And we provide that to the appraiser, along with some comps that we think give it the value. And hopefully, in a perfect world, it works.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your comments out there if you're watching, and your questions. We got some great ones coming in right now. Everybody's buying a house, selling a house, living in a house they wish they sold. Everybody's got an opinion right now. This is fantastic here. Hosea Botley checking in from Arizona. Looking forward to the show. Hosea, what's your deal, man? I know you're out there. You looking at a house too right now. Everybody's looking at a house here. Elizabeth, hi, Ben and Tina checking in from Stamford, Connecticut. What's up, Elizabeth? From Jacob Street Partners there. We've got some great comments here. Jack, never disappoint me there, Jack. There are workarounds in situation where a home may not appraise for a mortgage because of purchasing significantly above list price. Workaround may include buyer putting more money down. Doesn't this remind you just a little like 2008? Of course, we hear if you don't have to sell, you will be okay. What are your thoughts?
So first off, I can't say what it was reminding that it reminds me of 2008, because I started doing real estate in 2009, but it was in the downturn. So yeah. But I remember those times, not being a real estate agent, but I remember those times for sure. Do you feel like we're, to Jack's question a bit, do you feel like we're in a housing bubble? I mean, what are your thoughts on like the next year, 2 years, 3 years from a home value standpoint? They've been saying that for a couple of years, that, it's going to start falling. The prices are going to start going down. It can't keep going up, and they keep going up and keep going up. Eventually, probably it will level out. It's not going to happen anytime soon. We've got too much of a bottleneck of buyers and not enough listings, not enough homes. So where are these buyers coming from, Tina? All over. I don't know. It could be from COVID, when people are at home and they're like, this house is too small. We have a lot of people, actually have a lot of clients that are upgrading because they need office space for their home, because they're going to be permanently working from home. Yeah, I mean, if you got two people two professionals, officing, right? Two spouses officing in the home, and then you've got a kid who's doing Zoom school, right? Maybe more than one. I mean, that eats up space quite quickly. Right. Yep. Do you think that that's going to be a long-term requirement, though, Tina? I mean, are you hearing? I mean, there's questions about whether we're going to be working from home forever. Yeah. And are you hearing this? It's starting to look that way. So like even my son, who's an engineer, once they go back to work, they're only going back to work 1 or 2 days a week. So, and they'll permanently be, but I know that was one of the things we were talking about. Like we see a lot of commercial properties coming on the market right now because they don't need the brick and mortar anymore. They're doing it from home. Yeah. So, yeah. So interesting. I think, so I'm technically a millennial. I like to remind people of that as I get older. I'm technically a millennial. And, we didn't buy our first house till we were 35, my wife and I, and we had already had 1 kid with 1 on the way. I know millennials have been postponing getting married, postponing having kids, postponing buying houses.
Is some of that catch up happening now where millennials are finally buying a house or finally having kids and now needing more space? And are we seeing some of that infused
Um,
demand as well?
maybe a little bit, but I will tell you, I get a lot of young people. I just listed one in Plymouth that this is, I think, their third home, and I swear they don't look old enough to drive. They're probably in their late 20s. They're expecting their first baby, and this is their third home. So I feel like it's kind of even. I think you get some of the people who wait, and then you get some people who are ready to dive into it when they're young. My son bought his first home when he was 22.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. Interesting. This
yeah.
is great. This is great. We got another question here from Rob Zeitz out of Boston. Greetings. How much did Ben's celebrity status help the sale?
Oh, a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Advertised it as this is Ben's house, and man, the people lined up down the street.
I'll tell you what, when I moved
I
into that,
truthfully didn't even know that until we were at the closing. You're like, hey, I thought about having you on the show. And I'm like, what show?
she had no idea. She had no idea.
No.
But no, what's funny is though, the buyer's agent knew me from a relocation from the Detroit Regional Relocation Council. Sarah, she knew me, which was weird because I was actually like I think I might have been doing a thing when she came in with a guy to look at the water heater or something. And I'm like on my deal here. And anyway, that was funny, Rob. That's great. Yeah, I didn't have to leverage that, Rob, but I was willing to do it if I had to. Hosea Gottlieb, houses in my neighborhood in Lake Tapps, Washington are selling for 10 to 30K over selling price. Also, the market here in Arizona is crazy. Houses are receiving offers within 24 hours if the house makes it on the market at all. What do people, this is crazy to me, Tina. I mean, how are people even getting offers accepted?
So there's a lot of stuff that we have to do. There's appraisal waivers, there's appraisal gaps, there's waiving inspections, which I never recommend, but people do it if they want the house that bad. Gosh, there's a whole list of things that they do. If you have a good agent, they should know how to do those things.
Yeah, interesting. Good luck, Hosea.
Yeah, the one that I was telling you that I just listed in Plymouth, same thing as yours. We listed it at 400. They went away for the weekend too, and we ended up having I want to say we had 50 showings on it, and we had a bunch of offers, and ended up going over 30,000 over asking price.
So let's talk about the inspection for a minute, because this was probably the worst part of my home selling experience, and really had nothing to do with Tina at all. It was my own deferred maintenance issues that really got the best of me here. But what happened was, and I've been pretty transparent with a lot of people about this, but I'll just open kimono here with you guys. We got the offer for 510, and we went to we accepted it obviously, and then went to inspection, and they found like all these things, and it wasn't like anything major. The deck needed to be replaced. I would say a lot of other things to me felt kind of ticky tack, but whatever. They added it up to like, oh, this is gonna be like 30, 40 grand worth of repairs, and then they basically just walked. They didn't even counter off, they walked, which was kind of a punch in the gut for me, because I'm like, oh crap, like that was scary. So then of course we go to the next offer, which was 500. They come in, they inspect it. Oh, it's going to need 20K worth of stuff done to it. And they walked, right? So at this point, I had two buyers who walked on me based on the inspection. And I was like really freaking out, to be honest with you. And now we had so many offers that we had backups for backups, which was cool. But by the time you go through inspection, it takes a week or whatever. And then now we're like kind of 2 weeks after we initially put it on. It's like kind of close to Christmas at this point, or maybe it's just a hair after Christmas, whatever. It was like around that time frame. And we didn't want to have to put the house back on the market. And I was really kind of freaking out, to be honest with you. And then we kind of changed our strategy a little bit and kind of proactively offered, like kind of almost negotiated. I said, you know what, I'm willing to negotiate against myself, because we're so much over where I thought we were going to be at. I thought we were going to be at 440, 450. So now with this 490 offer, let's go ahead and, I'll replace the water heater. I'll replace the furnace, which, because of Tina's guy that I was able to use for some of that, one of those projects, I was able to actually reduce it quite a bit. So I got the furnace from Home Depot, I want to say, and I think I had the handyman or whatever put it in, or was it the water? I think it was the water heater that we did that with. Anyway, I was able to shave a lot off. So I probably got maybe $15,000 of value, perceived value, for probably $7,000 of actual expense in doing that. And I think I got some, I proactively went out and got estimates for the things that kept popping up. And I went out and got 3 bids, and of course used the lowest one and said, I'll split this with you. Right. And so those were some of my strategies to get over the inspection hump that was just kind of kept plaguing me. Right. Because I didn't want to go back to list it and have to move out and redo things, and maybe even take pictures again without my Christmas decoration. It was really causing me some agita, to be honest with you. But that was one of the things. So I think one of the things, if I were to say the only thing I would have probably done differently in my process, and Tina, I would love to hear your thoughts on this, right? The only thing I probably would have done different in the process is I probably would have bought an inspection on my own before listing it. What do you think about that?
So people do it. I'm not a big fan of it, because it doesn't matter what they find. The next inspector that comes in is going to find 20 other things. So you're going to constantly be fixing things. If you're going to listen to each one of them, you're better off just fixing them as they come up, in one inspection, and not doing that twice. So,
yeah,
but yeah, it definitely is the deferred maintenance thing. And as well as I do, what you ended up spending on that. People will try to beat you up for a price that's 3 times what the cost really is. So it's always better to do those things first.
Yeah, and I think my thought there with the inspection was to say, get the inspection, get a list of everything that's possibly wrong with the house, go out and get bids for those things, get 3 bids on each one, use the lowest bid, say I'll split it with you, some percentage, and then at least you're framing the conversation, and especially if you know people that can do it really, really price competitively. So
see, some of the things that you had for your maintenance issues were not going to be able to be handled in the middle of the winter too. So you were behind the 8 ball with that. Yeah,
like some of the exterior painting and some of the deck board replacement things. And yeah, for sure. Very interesting. Let's see here. We got other people checking in here. I'd love to hear your questions and comments. We're going to talk a little bit about Tina's, history too, and how she got into the business. Rima checking in from Prosper, Texas. What's up? Mary Lee comments, typically as a rule of thumb, how low housing inventory will be a seller's market, which is the case in most U.S. cities right now. Is there like a threshold of inventory, of months of inventory, where you're like, okay, if it's below this number, it's a seller's market? Is that like a?
There isn't, to be honest with you. I'm not even really exactly sure what it is. I know that we have 1.5 months of inventory right now, which I think is funny because I think it's backed up. Because they say that, but yet everything's going on the market, and 24 hours later it's pending. So,
is there a type of house that's just so hot right now it just can't even stay on the market? It's just.
Ranches are always more desirable than anything else because there's not as many of them. But no, I don't. I would say probably just ranches is the only thing I could say about that.
All right, so I was on. Every realtor's least favorite conversation starts with these words. So I was on Zillow. And I was looking at the Zestimate for my mom's house, right? And it's like $400,000 right now. Okay, she probably paid $250,000 for this house. Okay, and she needs to sell this house. Okay, I'm convinced she needs to sell this house right now if she can get anywhere in the neighborhood of that number, right? Because that's pretty much her retirement, I feel like. And how do you get people there mentally, right? I know so many people who are like, I kind of want to sell, kind of need to sell. Things are happening in my life. I'm getting older, I need to downsize, or medical issues, I need to move somewhere, or whatever. But they just don't pull the trigger. How do we get people there?
So first, let's back up to Zillow, Ben. Yes, you're right. Worst conversation. So that's an algorithm. And that's what I tell people. They will call me all the time and say, well, the Zestimate says that's just an algorithm. It could be comparing a house that's, gutted to the studs to a house that has all high end. It doesn't know. So that's where you definitely need the real estate agent. And then I already forgot what the rest of the question was. Repeat.
Well, how do I get my mom to sell her house? How do I get her there mentally when she's like kind of like, I don't want to go anywhere.
So I'm not a big advocate of pushing people to do things they're not ready to do.
See, that's all
obviously,
I do.
well, you go, well, you go through the steps and show her what she could get and make sure that there's some place for her to go. But if you push people to do things when they're not ready, if something goes wrong, guess whose fault it's going to be? It's going to be yours, Ben.
Everything's my fault already. Maybe
Right.
that's why I'm so eager to push people. I'm like, you're going to blame me anyway. I might as well control the situation. Let's see here. This is great. This is great. We got people checking in here. Alan King, when we sold our condo in West Palm Beach, our realtor had an awesome photographer take some amazing pictures, which really made our property stand out. It was amazing selling a property from here in Germany without being able to prepare a condo in advance of having it listed. We truly trust our realtor, and she also helped us with a great contact for international taxes. Your photographer was amazing, Tina. Like she was incredible, and you had a guy come out with a drone.
Yep. Yeah. So again, that goes back on, when this is what we do every day, we know the people to use. So we didn't always have a great photographer. We had to go through some. In fact, I've paid for pictures more than twice on a listing before because I wasn't happy with them. But then we got these guys and they're fantastic. So yeah, all of those things are really important. You got to make the house shine. You got to make it look its very best.
Well, and it's funny because I can tell the difference just by when I scroll through my favorite website, Zillow. I can actually tell the difference between people who are FSBOs on there for sale by owners because their house looks so dark and dank and I would never click on this. I would never want to live here. This happened to my dad. Oh, my dad's not watching. Dad, if you're watching, I'm sorry, man. This is true. When my dad moved to Philly and he was going to FSBO his house, he took pictures of everything and it looked terrible. And nobody touched it for months and he had to take it off. And anyway, he's redoing. He's getting ready to sell it again. But anyway,
when we went through COVID, we had that issue because some of the photographers weren't going into the homes and doing the photography. So we had to do the best we could with houses that had to be sold. I mean, we had people who, had already sold their house and they were looking for another house, or, they already bought a house and they had to get theirs under contract. So, so we were having to do stuff like that during COVID too. It wasn't pretty. I know I can look at the listings and go, oh, that one was taken during COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Francine says the Zestimate is BS.
It is.
This is great.
And when you were talking about, I can't remember who it was that said that. Jack said something about trusting their real estate agent. Best feeling in the world when your client trusts you that much. And one of the things when I first started doing real estate, if you Google a realtor is or realtors are, what autofills in there is so disheartening. And so that was my goal. My goal was, you know what? I'm going to treat people the way I want to be treated. I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to, that's my goal, is to make that go away, make that public perception of real estate agents of being dishonest and thieves, and because that's what it autofills in. So, and when when you care about people, it comes through.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah. I think that's good in any business. Kimberly Powell says, you go, Tina.
Hi, Kimmy. She's on my team.
Nice.
She's a rock star.
Eric Masadi's joking with me, more mayo. Yeah, so I don't know if you know this, Tina, but if you want to get scratches out of wood floors, mayonnaise.
They shine leaves up on plants really well, too.
There you go. Yep. Mayonnaise goes on everything, guys. That's what the takeaway here is. Mayonnaise on everything. Jose was talking about in Arizona. He saw a house in Arizona. As he was driving to the next house, they just received 2 offers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's another little dig on Zillow. That's the reason why we don't push Zillow, because half the properties are pending before they even hit that market.
Yeah, no, great point.
Yep.
Let's see, Elizabeth in Connecticut, regarding the inspection, I would do differently is assign a value instead of getting the thing fixed. We had a burner on our stove that didn't work and we couldn't get the part before closing. It was a problem with the closing. It would have been easier to tell them that I would pay them $200 instead of going through the hassle of fixing it. Yeah, quite possibly, Elizabeth. And I think that's the conventional wisdom, right? Is to assign a value to something, just say, here's a concession. And I did that with some of the stuff. But I also think that like some of the stuff was past its don't want to say useful life, but whatever, it's projected lifespan. And I don't know why. I just felt like I felt like I was getting more of a value by getting it done. I felt like I was getting 10 grand for my furnace when it only cost me 5 to replace it. I felt like I was getting 10 grand negotiating power, if you will.
And that's where you go back on that, where she says it's better to offer them money. And who determines what that value is? Because you're going to say it's only going to cost you 500, and the buyer's going to say it's going to cost you 3,000. So
yeah, but he might have taken half the perceived value too, because it was still functional. So it's really super interesting, really super. So let me ask you. And then Jack's got one comment before I got into some questions that I have. Jack says, I would have a sick feeling in my stomach if I was to pay $50,000 over the list. Is this not at least a bit bothersome to anyone else? How did that house appraise at $50K over list? I don't know, Jack. Are you talking about my house? So if you are, I don't know if you are or not. But Jack, what I was saying is, I think based on what I was seeing going in the neighborhood and what I was seeing the previous sales at, I was thinking my house would have been priced around 440, 450, maybe 460. And Tina was like, no, 500 all day. And she was 100,000% right. So it wasn't over list. It was over some of the other recent sales, but there were comps in the neighborhood, but on the other side of the neighborhood that supported it. But a lot of those comps were from homes that were kind of like a newer generation, I think, too. But we were taking the benefit of that. Whereas the other realtor, and Tina, I'd love your thoughts, but the other realtors I was talking to, he only was looking at a very narrow set of comps, like on like the two blocks around. And I think that's what kind of was freezing those prices in place over time. And I think actually doing a disservice to the neighborhood, because he was only comparing them to like a handful of houses instead of like the broader neighborhood, which is a golf community, and all really could be considered the same, in my opinion. What do you think, Tina?
Well, and the appraisers too are giving a little bit of a bump for value for there not being any inventory. So, they understand what's going on too. But you're right. I mean, the comps that we used on your house they may have been not a 1 block radius. They were still comparable homes.
Yeah, I think so. And I'd feel good about that. Francine says, I love that you interviewed 3 real estate agents. There are so many keys literally to a great real estate agent. Trust is number one with any relationship. And it is great to hear your network that she brought to the table and her research to support what she believed you could get for your house. So when I had to tell the other 2 people that they didn't get the listing, there were one was really like sour. One didn't care because they were like an internet whatever thing, and one of them was like really like, well, what? How many houses has she sold in the neighborhood? And like he was like, he would not leave me alone. He kept going at like basically like, what's their qualifications or whatever, and I mean, I trusted you, and I felt like it's like one of those, it's like the old saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right. And it's like, if you listed it for 500, you were going to get 500. If he listed it for 450, he was going to get 450. And I'm thinking to myself, I think both of you guys are going to get what you're asking for, but she believes it's up here. And I think if you don't believe it's up there, you're never going to get up there. It's like your own personal worth when you're negotiating the salary. It's like, if you don't believe in you and what's your property, and you had the comps to support it, but I don't think I would have ever gotten to 500 with this guy at 450. So I'm like, I'd rather start with you and go down 20 grand than start with him and go up 20 grand. I'd still be better off. So anyway, he was wrong. He lost it.
He was wrong.
He was wrong. Mary Lee, agree with Tina on not doing inspections on your own in advance of selling your house. Had another reason not to do your own upfront inspection report is having to disclose and may cause you issues. You want the inspections done by the buyer and then negotiate. Potentially, however, had I done it I would have had an opportunity at the 510 mark to come in with some proactive split the cost deals, which might have landed me on 495, 490 versus landing on 490 minus a few fixes. And
but that buyer's paying a couple $1,000s for his inspection. That inspector is going to find 20 other things. So you would have added, not just to yours, but then you would have had more added onto that. So you still would have, I still think you wouldn't have been ahead.
Yeah, I trust you, Tina. You're probably right. So let me ask you, Tina. We've kind of gone down my story and everything, and thank you for indulging me and everything. I've had such a great experience, and I just wanted people to hear about it. But how did you get into real estate? I gotta ask.
So I have 4 kids, and when they were little, I wanted to be their parent. I didn't want someone else raising them. So I did a whole lot of things. I have drove school bus. I have waited tables. I babysat for other people's children. I cleaned houses. I did whatever I needed to do to be at home with my kids. Wow. So then at the point where they were growing up and going to college and stepping out, I thought it's time for me to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I always wanted to work with people, and this is perfect for me. Like, I've made lifelong friends. I came across so many people that I will be friends with forever. So just being able to help people. I always said I'd like to do something with when they're getting married, because that's a happy time in their life. But honestly, when they're buying houses, that's a happy time in their life too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's cool. Well, and I mean, like, you could have worked with people being waiting tables and everything, but I mean, let's face it. I mean, the earning potential is a lot higher than all the other vocations you described. Being a successful real estate agent. What's it like having your own team and like being an entrepreneur and everything? I'm kind of new to entrepreneurship, a few months in. What are your thoughts?
I absolutely love having my team. I wouldn't be where I'm at without them. Every one of them are fantastic. One of the things that I look at when we're building a team is people who are going to care about their clients, people who are going to be honest, people who are going to work with integrity. So those are the things that we really look for in our team. And again, that goes back to that trying to change that public perception of what a bad rap realtors have, really. So everybody on my team's amazing. Back in 2016, I started to get busy enough to where I realized I wasn't able to return all the calls and do all the showings. And I was kind of picking and choosing, which is not the type of person I wanted to be. So I then brought on my first team agent, and we grew from there. So it's been an experience for sure. I absolutely love it. The team's amazing. We now have our own building, which we moved the team to our own building just before COVID hit. So we didn't even open our doors yet. So that was quite the experience. That was a little scary, but yeah, it's been most definitely an experience.
What do you think has really contributed to your success? I mean, what's your model? Like what, like if you were, I see all these realtors, doing these real estate seminars, and they're like, talking about, how to grow and how to grow their business, how to grow your brand, everything. I mean, I'll be honest with you, Tina, when I first met you, I'm like, okay. And then you like crushed it for me. One of the, what Chris Howder told me about you? He says, yo, you gotta call Tina. He's like, she's such a badass. He said she's a killer. And then you showed it to her door. I'm like, she doesn't look like a killer. And then, but you did. You crushed it for me. You really did. But like,
so when I first started doing real estate, I was not as confident, obviously, because you're not quite sure what you're doing. You learn. Yeah. But I've been doing it long enough that I'm very confident, and I think that comes across. And again, you just don't advise anybody to do anything you wouldn't do yourself. So, and then when we talk about relationships, if I had to survive on just selling your house, it wouldn't work. So that's one of the things, like, you have to be a trustworthy person. So, where Chris came from? Chris came from me selling his parents' house, 2 of them, his parents and his grandparents. Wow. So it's a relationship business. It just continues to build.
Yeah. So, and I know I've referred you to all my friends in the neighborhood too. In fact, I put one post about my success on my little neighborhood Facebook page. I had like 3 people, DM me like, hey, can you connect me with your realtor? I'm like, yeah, I'd be happy to. Sounds great. Yeah. I'd love to. This is great. We got a couple comments coming in here. Mary Lee says, yes, trust Tina. See, people are on board. They're on the Tina train right now. This is great. Sandra's saying, I was a California realtor back when rates were in double digits. Definitely challenging for rent versus buy. Analysis of qualification. My PSA for all realtors is to say it's a 2-syllable word: realtor. Right, Sandra. Let them know. Rob Zeit says she doesn't look like a killer. Famous last words.
It's always the quiet one. See, I'm not quiet either.
That's great. I love it. Katie, I might be biased, but Tina has an awesome team, and it's because she is such an awesome person herself, and she makes everyone feel like they can do anything. She does it in a kind and respectful way. So much love, Tina. You know, that's true, Tina. Honestly, like I remember I was joking about how bad my bathroom was or my tile situation or whatever. And you wouldn't even let me talk negatively about my own house. Tina's like so respectful, and like she's like, you're great, Tina.
Yeah.
Rob saying, Ben, maybe you can work your mother to see how much she's spending on upkeep for her home. That's what finally convinced my mother to downsize, that she was sinking money into a house she was going to move away from at some point anyway. Connecting her with a trustworthy agent that's not going to push her, but will tell her the truth would be a big help too. Yeah. So
there's that, don't push.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the thing for me too was like just getting someone in the door who knew what they were talking about. Like getting you through my front door was the hardest part in the process. Getting mentally prepared to say, we're committed to doing this. We're going to show our home to a stranger. We're going to hear what they have to say. Of course, it wasn't nearly as bad as we thought in our mind, right? And like we're thinking like, oh, rent out the bathroom, rent out the kitchen, do whatever, right? And you're like, no, just get it on quick. That was like like get it on now during
off
COVID.
The Band-Aid.
Exactly. And once we did that, I mean, that was it. But I mean, I'm in a situation with my dad and my mom both who were like, you know, needing to sell their house, and it's like just getting somebody through the front door is super hard. What's the best way to find a real estate agent?
So you did the exact right thing. You interviewed, but you should look at their presence online. You should look at their past sales. And you know what? I had probably one of my first 5 clients I'm still best friends with. And, you know, you're new to the business. You're just getting started. And I had talked to her online. I had talked to her on the phone, and all of a sudden she emails me. She's supposed to come in from Atlanta. She was relocating, and she emails me and says, "Hey, everybody's telling me I should interview my agent. Do you mind?" I go, "No, give it to me." Very first question was, "How long have you been doing this?" And I'm like, 6 months. But I answered the questions very confidently and told her I work for, you know, one of the top companies in Michigan, and promised that I was going to give her the attention she needed, and we're still friends to this day. So you should really interview. You can ask questions, ask for their past sales, ask for past clients for referrals. And I will tell you, Google, people Google all the time the restaurant they're going to spend $20 on a dinner or $50 on a dinner, but they don't Google the reviews on their real estate agent. And how much do you spend on your house? $500,000, $1 million, however, you know.
Right.
So, and that's one of the things I say. People say, well, you know, you can look at the Zillow reviews, or you can look at the reviews on my website. Those all can be altered. Google, when it's on there, it's on there. So that definitely is a good way. Just like you're looking for what restaurant's going to serve the best dinner, that's a good way to look for your agent.
Let me ask you a couple other things, right? So you hear about, I've heard the term buying the listing thrown around. What does that mean?
So you were backwards. Me arguing with you about a higher price, that's
you
not
did.
the normal.
You had to argue with me to list it at 5.
I'm just telling you that's not the normal. So the normal is, and you saw the detailed work that I put into where I got to that number. So I do a lot of work. It takes me a couple of hours to do that, to determine, and obviously walking through the house and giving advice. And so when I get to that number, I'm confident that that's where that number should be. A lot of times you'll have an agent go in and they'll say, like, I would be the one who gave you the 450, and the other agent would come in at 500. But a lot of times we call it buying a listing. Don't let somebody just tell you a number. Make them show you how they got to that number. Because what happens is the seller says, oh, I can get 500 with this agent. I'm going to go with that agent. And they don't give you anything that justifies that. And you end up coming down in price, but you're already in contract with them.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, that was one of my concerns, was like, is she coming in high and highballing this thing in order to get the business? And that brings me to my second point or question. What is your advice on negotiating commission structures? Because I hear a lot of people talking about that, because now these internet companies come in like, oh, for only, X%, we'll do it. And I'll be honest, if I would have, I should let you answer. What's your take on it?
So when you get a discount broker, when you get a discount agent, and they say, you know, don't let anybody convince you you're cutting anything anywhere. You're cutting someone else's pay. So on the buy side, it's not just my commission that I'm cutting that on your buyer's agent. So do you think that buyer's agent is going to be all happy about pushing your home as being the best home for their client? You know, that's not how we work, but some agents, they're not like that. It's about the paycheck.
Yeah.
So if it's about the paycheck and they can make, you know, a couple $1,000s going down the road, they're going to go down the road. And you know, that's going to, you pay for it on your end over what you think you're going to save by doing discounted commissions.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
And I know you and I kind of had that conversation too, because you
we did. I like to negotiate everything. I'll be honest with you. Okay, my 5-year-old knows how to negotiate better than most adults because of the way I roll. But I did because you came in so high, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna put a kicker in here if it goes over a certain amount, which it did. I'll put a kicker in there. And of course, Tina's like, listen, I don't even want it. I just want your referrals. If you know, and I was like, well, now I really owe her. So now I got to give her 3 referrals because I was like, you know, she has so much integrity and so much, you know, just the way she does business and everything. But I still feel like I owe you $2,000.
What's funny about that story too is that, you know, you wanted to tier it to where I would discount it if we didn't make a certain number. And I said, yeah, because that's how confident I was. Like, yeah. I didn't want you to think I wasn't going to discount the commission because I wasn't confident. So I just said, yep, no, I'm good.
And she was, and it worked out amazingly. And oh my gosh. Anyway, Sandra says, I love seeing a great realtor get some love. Realtors are some of the hardest working people, always getting calls to go out exactly when mere mortals want to go home relaxing. When you're commission only, you have to have a wise approach to when you say no. Elizabeth says I negotiate everything. Yeah. I'll tell you what though, I've over negotiated some things in my life. And to your point, you know, you kind of get what you pay for. So it's like the game isn't always to pay as little as possible because you get what you pay for and you'll end up getting as little as possible, you know, which I did with my first painter in that house. It was terrible. So interesting. But this is a seller's market right now. We talked about that, which is crazy because it's COVID and it's like you kind of think the brakes are just on everywhere, but people are buying, you know, the demand is super high, the inventory is super low. Let's talk about your top 5. I think this is a great time to bring up your top 5 here.
Top 5.
Let's do it. Stacy, what's the top 5? So what's the top 5 today, Tina?
Top 5 things that you need to know as a buyer. And I know we've been talking a lot about sellers, but it's a seller's market. So you've got to have your plan going in as a buyer and your expectations going in as a buyer. Yeah,
let's do it. Let's get into it. Number 5.
Keep an open mind with what you're looking for. So what that means is everybody loves the same house. Everybody loves the house that's right from Pottery Barn and all decorated and in perfect condition, and they don't have to do anything to it and it's turnkey. Yeah. So to get out of that competition and out of that bidding war, you may go to a house that needs a little bit of elbow grease. You might be able to add another bathroom. You might be able to put a garage on where there wasn't one. So, you know, or maybe a little bit less acreage, but you keep an open mind when you're looking at houses that you may be able to find something that everybody else isn't looking for and see the vision there.
You know, that's so interesting you say that because you're right. We've all been conditioned with HGTV and Chip and Joe and like everything to all love the same stuff, right? And so I imagine that the demand for those types of houses, you know, that has all the right color schemes and all the right finishes is super high. But one thing I struggled with when I bought my house, which needed updates, you know, tremendous updates in the master bathroom and to some degree in the kitchen, was that I didn't have the cash. I didn't have enough liquid in order to make those renovations, and I definitely didn't have the time or the skill set to do it myself. So, what would you say to people if you're telling buyers to keep an open mind? What would you say to those buyers that maybe aren't inclined to do it themselves? How can they make those changes and make it look like the house they really want?
So they can get a much better deal on that house, the monetary difference in the sales price even. So, and not that leaves it open for you to be able to do that, but if your payment's less, you can save up money to do those repairs or to do those updates.
Yeah. I know my cousin actually took a 401k loan to do her kitchen. So that, you know, that's interesting as well. Number 4.
Number 4, be ready to go see a house right away. So because it's a seller's market, the house is like, I have a lot of clients that I have them set up on a portal where it sends it to them as soon as it comes on the market. And so I tell them, don't wait until you have 3 or 4 lined up. Don't wait for the weekend because it's going to be gone. So just kind of try to give as much respect as you can, but you want to be able to drop everything and go see that house right away so that you've got a chance for, to get your offer in on it.
And if is everybody listing on like a Wednesday, Thursday, or
I don't know. That's just something that I've found in my experience that works really well. And it not used to be back before COVID, when we could do open houses in person. That was really kind of the purpose of it. You would have 2 or 3 or 4 days of showings, and then by the time the weekend hit, it's in all of the sites, and then people would come in for the open house, and at the end of that, you should be under contract. So.
Interesting. So that basically means if you're looking for a house, you need to be prepared to go on your lunch break or something to go see that place, because interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Or
awesome.
Go see it in the dark, because it gets dark here a little bit early. So go see it in the dark and then drive by it during the day to make sure that you like it during the day.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yep.
Number 3,
understand that we're in a seller's market. And so there's a lot low inventory, but a lot of buyers. So we need to do some creative things when we're putting offers in on properties. So that's where we went. We kind of talked about some of that. That's where we're talking about appraisal waivers, appraisal gaps. So you may bring, $5,000 above appraised value up to a certain price. And again, some people will waive the inspection. I do this every day. I would never waive an inspection because there's so many things you can't see. But there's a multitude. And if you have an agent that's experienced at what they're doing, and this is what they do every day, they know those things to do. You may give them free occupancy. I think we got that with you. Give them 30 days to move out, take their time and not pay for it.
Yeah, this is interesting. I'll tell you what, one thing I hated as a seller, but I thought was a great ploy from the buyer. And hit that like button, by the way. If you're watching right now on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, hit that like button right now. Show Tina some love. But one thing I'll say is I feel like the people that came in over ask, because I felt like it was already priced high. So the people that came in over ask, I think they bought first right of refusal on the place. And because they came in over ask, they came up with more stuff on the inspection than in a higher value for that than anybody would have, and then they walked with no counter offer. Right. So that to me was like, we just want first right at looking, like taking a deeper look at it. Now they still had to spend, I think, $1,000 between the sewer inspection and the actual home inspection, but they bought first right to look at it. So if you want, and who's gonna turn down 510 over 500? You're gonna accept that offer. It's the highest offer. Unless what do you think, Tina? Do you ever counsel somebody to turn down an offer that's 10K over?
And so do you remember me saying to you that I need you to keep in mind that the first offer almost always falls through? That's because that's what they're doing. They're just trying to beat out everybody else. They come in aggressive, and they're not realistic about what they're looking for, and they end up trying to negotiate something way lower. So we were lucky enough that we had, a bunch of other offers that were willing to step up. So, but you do have to be careful of that.
Well, and you told me that we should definitely be accepting, basically accepting more backups on backups kind of thing.
Yeah.
Jody really quickly popped in here. Hi, I'm not able to stay on long, but I'm curious on realtor thoughts on sharing commission with RMCs. If your company comfortable talking to this. This is Jody. Jody is a corporate relocation manager for a company in Wisconsin, I think. Thoughts on relocation deals?
Hi, Jody. RMC. What's RMC?
Oh, relocation management company. So like the reload deals you do. Yeah.
I was going to say that's a reload jargon. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, we do what we do. Is it exciting? No, it's not exciting. And if I have the opportunity to reach out to an agent where I can say, hey, let's do a 25% referral fee just between us, I will do that. But a lot of times it's in the best interest of the client. You're getting them attached with a top agent in their area. So we have criteria as relocation agents that we have to abide by. Like, we have to answer to not just the client. They ask for reports on us, like weekly, monthly, after they close. So if we don't live up to that, we're off the team. So, that puts a pretty high standard of the agent having to, do what they're supposed to do their job.
Jody, what are your thoughts on this? Obviously, you have an opinion about it, so I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments as well. Cool. Number two, get your pre-approval in place. So a lot of times people will come and they'll say, hey, I saw this house and it looks cute and we're just kind of thinking about moving, but let's go look at it. So if you don't have your pre-approval in place, the way that the market is moving right now, what if your lender's not available to do that pre-approval for 24 hours? You've lost your house. What if it takes a little bit longer? Maybe you're self-employed or whatever the criteria may be for the lender, that it takes a little bit longer than just a few hours to get your pre-approval. Somebody else has got your home. So make sure that that's in place. And then again, that falls back on trust your agent. Hopefully you guys have done enough talking with your agent and interviewing with your agent that trust is there, so that when they recommend somebody to you, you're like, okay, that's who I'm going with. So I would tell you, trust your agent and make sure that pre-approval is in place, even if you're just thinking about it. Doesn't cost anything. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm thinking about this because I'll be honest, I ended up financing my house the first time around, and it was a terrible experience with the lender, and it was recommended from my agent. And I guess they had like a, I don't know if there was a friendship, maybe. I don't know if there was any other kind of a relationship there or anything, but I'll be honest, it was just terrible. And I wished I would have went with a credit union, to be honest with you, because the rates I were getting from them were so good. But my real estate agent was saying to go with this big bank, and I ended up doing it. And it was terrible and expensive and all sorts of stuff. And so but get pre-approval in place. Do people not do this? I mean, I feel like most people have already got that mortgage approval.
You know what? Probably half of the people that we show homes to when we first start off are not ready to get their pre-approval. It's a very personal thing. I mean, you're giving them your income and your tax returns, and so it's a personal thing to get that done, but it's a necessary thing. So
I think start off. It's kind of like the buyer's version of opening your home up and everything. It's very
Yeah.
Let's see here. Jody says, thanks for the insight. I've seen some realtors who will not work with relocation management companies for that reason. Jody, I have too. And everybody wants, all the realtors I know want to be in relocation until they hear the commission splits, and they're like, yeah, I'm actually not that desperate. I'll be all right.
A little bit more insight on that. I completely believe that when you're working for somebody, it's not with a buyer or seller, it's not that one sale that makes your success. It's you make them happy, and then they pass you on to their family and their friends and their neighbors. Yeah. So a lot of times that's what you're doing that for, because you're right. You're not making a lot of money on it, but it's worth it. In fact, my very first client that I told you that relocated from Atlanta, she came through relocation. And, this many years later, we're best friends. I've probably, I want to say 4 or 5 homes between her and her mom. So there's runoff from it.
But that's interesting though, because remember how she said, how long have you been doing this for? And you said 6 months, and she came through relocation. A lot of the realtors out there will say, you're not getting our best people. You're getting our new people, or the people that we hired expressly for this purpose, so they can cut their teeth in real estate and learn the lingo and everything. And then they move into their own book of business, from the referrals from that book. So I think that's interesting. I think you kind of support that as well. Rory says, it's funny the bank won't give me a mortgage for $900 a month, but for the last 4 years I've been paying $1,200 a month in rent. Sorry, Rory. Hope the new job's working out for you. It's funny. Number one, work with a real estate agent. So not saying that because I'm a real estate agent, but I'm saying that because, again, and we kind of covered some of this, but the Zillow, people are looking at Zillow and they're like, I can just look on Zillow, and I can just look on Truly, and I can just look on realtor.com. And when that house comes up, I'll call the listing agent. The listing agent always works for the seller. So, but as far as is not having a real estate agent that sends you things prior to them coming on the market, they send you things the day that they're on the market instead of waiting 2 days for them to hit Zillow. Especially in the market we're in right now. Again, that's really important. And fall back on the trust again.
We've got a lot of different people at our fingertips that we use every day that we can recommend. And that's important to be able to pull the whole deal together and make it as stress-free as possible for the buyer.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, those MLS, alerts or little emails that get pushed out every day, or so, as soon as something comes on, it gets pushed out, and knowing that you only have 24 hours to try to make an offer anyway. I mean, that's the difference in getting, the houses that are good, right? That you want. So yeah, that's a great piece of advice. And I'll tell you, my cousin had a friend who had a good experience with, what was it, Redfin or whatever. So that's why I took a look at them. They literally priced it $73,000 less than you priced it. Had I gone with them, I would have probably had to bring like some cash to the table or something, when it's all said and done. And I just can't, like, it was, it was funny too. They sent me an updated price on my home after I sold it. They priced it at 504 after I sold it. I'm like, yeah, thanks. Where were you guys like 3 months ago?
Right.
Like, come on.
Right.
Like, what are you doing, people? What are you doing? Oh my gosh, just ridiculous. Rory says I use Zillow, but I have a realtor I've been with for a little over a year. Yeah, cool. This is great here. Tina, I want to ask you, I want to give you the opportunity to kind of like close us out here a little bit. I know I've been talking a lot. I'm sorry, Tina.
No, that's okay.
But yeah, but what do you think people ought to know, or is there anything you want to leave us with?
Nope. I would just say I think we covered a lot during the show. And again, just make sure you're interviewing who you're working with. Make sure you're Googling and looking at their reviews. It benefits now with the way the market is to have a team. And that's one of the things we didn't touch on as far as the team goes, is that if something happens and I'm not available to show a house, Kim's there, Katie's there, Kirsten's there, they're all there to go do the showings, or to, take a phone call on the listing that we have or whatever it happens to be. So that's kind of important too. We're only one person, so there's only so many hours a day and so much that we can do that helps a lot too.
Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. And everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Tomorrow, we got a huge show tomorrow. We've got the CEO of Plus Relocation, Susan Benavides, is going to be with us. She is a powerhouse, a visionary. I can't wait to talk to Susan. It's always a blast. She always has so much energy, so much vision. Can't wait. So please tune in tomorrow. Tina, thank you so much for being here. It's so great to see you.
Thank you, Ben. Great to see you too. Enjoy your time in Texas.
Thanks so much. Take care, everybody. We will see you tomorrow.